Hello and welcome to 10 by 9, where 9 people have up to 10 minutes each to tell a true story from their own life. I'm Paul Dorn, and this is the 10 by 9 podcast. This podcast is coming out on Easter Sunday, so I hope you're having a lovely day. But if you're listening at a later date, which obviously is more likely, I hope you had a lovely day and a few days off. There are 3 wonderful stories on this podcast for you, all told at the Black Box on March 25th. The theme was something new, and we had teamed up with Imagine, Belfast Festival of Politics and Ideas. And while there was less of the politics, we had plenty of ideas.
So she wasn't very happy with that suggestion. And the third suggestion was swimming in volcanic mud in Iceland naked.
I proceeded to search for a Russian-speaking chess club. I found one not far away and took him along on a Sunday afternoon. Niet.
A road trip, a surprise trip, and a journey of self-discovery. Brilliant. So, let's get started. Take it away, Tim Hedgley.
I got engaged way back in 1980. And for the young ones, that's before the internet or the modems that used to crackle, all those sorts of things. So my now wife, but my girlfriend then, we decided that we were going to go to Hong Kong because it's somewhere we always had wanted to go. So we saved up for in excess of about a year and a half. I saved everything that I had and we bought 2 tickets and we stayed at the YWCA in Kowloon. How the hell we got in there, I'll never know, but we were there for a month, so it was a pretty impressive stay, and we did a lot of travelling when we were there. And whilst we were there, my wife and I decided to get engaged. Now, I'd spent all my money on a £325 Cathay Pacific airline ticket, and I was broke. I had nothing. So my wife bought her engagement ring. And I think it was about 130 odd pounds. But I was always determined that I would pay her back for that at some stage. So roll on 20 odd years, 2 children and a marriage. And my wife knew that I was somewhat predictable. So I decided instead of my silver wedding anniversary, I would do it 2 years early. So my wife received a letter from a company called the Special Treats Company. And this company, what they did was they took my budget and my ideas, and they had an advisor contact my wife, who was called Simone, not my wife, but the advisor. So Simone and David, my advisor, they would pull the ideas that they got from the 2 people and the interested parties, and they would put together a special treat. So we were lying in bed, and I was hoping that my wife would have said to me, "Oh, I've got an email today." But it was about 3.5 to 4 weeks later. My wife said, "Oh, I got an email from Simone." And I went, "Right." And she said, "I'm not really happy." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, she sort of interviewed me previously and then sent me this email, and there were 3 suggested proposals for this amazing special treat. The first one was hiking up in Scotland. Now, my wife doesn't have great knees, never has done. She's got a loose patella, and I'm not breaching GDPR, but hiking is not something she really wants to do. So then she was offered cycling in the Lake District. My wife has never ridden a bike, doesn't know how to ride a bike, got her 2 children on bikes, but she wasn't able to do it herself. So she wasn't very happy with that suggestion. And the third suggestion was swimming in volcanic mud in Iceland naked. And I was lying in bed thinking, Jesus, well, God, I can't say that. We're almost holy in here. And I'm thinking, this budget that I have spent is really going nowhere. So I said to my wife, write back to Simone and say, look, you're into things like the Galgorm, and, well, Galgorm wasn't going then, but 5-star hotels and lots of luxury, because you like nice things. So she wrote a rather curt letter back to Simone and basically said that her 3 options were pretty crap and that she would like to do some other things. So there was quite a number of emails going forward and back, and Grace was keeping me advised of what she was saying to Simone. But what she didn't know was I owned the Special Treats Company. I had registered a domain name and set up a fake website. And I was Simone. So, and I actually checked before we came out today, and Grace is my wife, by the way. Grace still has the emails, and some of them are just hilarious. And I thought to myself, Jesus, you were on form. So this special treat started to develop wheels and legs. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to send documentation. So I got an A4 manila envelope, one of the big the big brown ones, and put inside a guidebook. And then I had, just to wind her up a little bit more, I had a small envelope with inoculation advice. I had Imodium and diarrhea, you know that one. I had local currency, and I had forwarding tickets from your second airport. So she hadn't a clue where she was going. And I packaged this all up, and I thought she's going to see the frank stamp, you know, where you frank letters for those of us that get letters nowadays. So I took it to a post office in Castlereagh, and I asked the postmistress. I told her what I was doing. She says, "Not a problem. I'll smudge the envelope for you, and nobody will know where the hell it's come from." So the envelope arrives about 6 weeks out, and she was allowed to open the inoculation one because it said that I had an appointment for a travel clinic for her. And she was thinking, where the hell am I going to go? So another one was the flight tickets, which she wasn't allowed to open. So we packed off, my wife, my daughter, and my daughter's best friend, and we headed to Aldergrove Airport. And we were to be at Aldergrove at exactly 2 p.m. And as we walked into Aldergrove Airport, all the destination boards that would say Malaga, Portugal, Faro, they all went blank. And they were deliberately turned off because I had spoken to somebody at the airport. So my wife still didn't know where the hell she was going. And I was told to go to check-in desk 17, and this had all been prearranged with the airline. And I handed over the 4 passports, and the girl handed me back the boarding passes. And my wife sort of, like a dog, I says, "No, you're not allowed to see them. You can open your packages on the plane." Oh, there was local currency. That was one of the other envelopes. So we boarded, and the game was up. She knew she was going to go to Berlin. And I had a limousine waiting for us, and Seal, the singer, had just got out of it, and we were doing the return trip. And I remember the chauffeur saying, "You're going to the Ritz-Carlton in Potsdamer Platz in Berlin." So Grace knew that she was going to the Ritz-Carlton, and I actually work in the travel industry, and we've done quite a few Ritz-Carlton hotels, but she didn't know what was going to happen. So we arrived into the Ritz-Carlton. I'd done a deal with them, and we got executive floor rooms. So like I had Bluetooth curtains, and I was sitting playing with all the gadgets, and Grace was saying, "This is our anniversary weekend. You're playing with the buttons, beside the bed, which was typical of me. So got to the Ritz at about 2:00 that afternoon, and Grace loves a walking tour. I hate them fucking things, but she loves them. So we went for a walking tour, and there were 8 tickets. And she sort of said, "What? We've 8 tickets, there's only 4 of us." Well, unbeknownst to Grace, I'd also flown in her sisters, 2 sisters, and 2 brother-in-laws, and another daughter. And they were in executive rooms as well, so there was a whole pile of us. And we went out on a tour of Berlin, which she absolutely loved. Then we came back to the hotel that night, and we had a special dinner because I'd been involved in talking to the chef, who was a gentleman called Thomas Kellerman. So the menu that was designed was everything that Grace liked to eat, and it was paired with wines that the hotel selected. So we had a fabulous dinner. There was about 9 of us at the table. Cost me a small fortune. I'm still paying for it. My credit rating is gone. I have no credit cards. So we had this meal, and Thomas, the head chef, came out from the kitchen with a trolley. And on the trolley was a chocolate ganache cake, just a beautiful chocolate cake. And playing in the background was the music that my wife walked up the aisle to, which was Vangelis, Chariots of Fire. If she knew then what she knew now, she'd be running out of the church rather than running into it. And Thomas brought out this cake, and on top of the cake there were 3 chocolate spears, and she got a new 1.5 brilliant cut diamond engagement ring and a wedding ring, which made me very happy. It made her even more happy because she was able to throw away the old one that had done for so many years. And we had lots of crack in the hotel. On the executive floor, they have this executive club room where they've got members of staff who feed you champagne for breakfast, dinner and tea. And it was just brilliant. And it's quite stuffy up there because they get a lot of businessmen. But this crowd of Irish people come in. They loved us because I'm also a part-time magician. So I did... Paul said there were no health warnings. Let me tell you, my brother-in-laws don't speak to me at all now because I've raised the bar so high. So we're in the bedroom that night, and I said, "Well, what do you reckon to that?" She said, "That was brilliant." She says, "I don't know how you did it." And she said, "Simone really pulled it out of the bag." And I said to her, "Simone is actually at the hotel." And she looked at me and her face fell. "You paid for her to come on this trip?" And I said, "Simone's in the room." My wife normally has a very good complexion, but she turned bright white. And the reason she turned white, she thought I was coming out as a cross-dresser or a transvestite. And she told me the conversation that she had with her brain, saying, "Now, give him space. It's a difficult time. You've got to support him. Tell him you love him. And if that's his choice, well, that's what you want to do." So her new engagement ring was something new.
Tim, how brilliant was that? I reckon you could have planned D-Day single-handedly. I have a feeling you'll be back with more before long. Delighted. Now, just a quick thank you to everyone who helps keep 10 by 9 going with donations. Some of you give via Patreon, and some of you donate to StoryPig at our live events. Either way, thank you. 10 by 9 is always free and always will be, so it really keeps this project on the go. And just before we get to our third story, I wanted to let you hear this from the evening in the Black Box.
I want to just very quickly pay tribute to someone a 10 by 9 contributor who died very recently. Some of you might know him. He was Roy Arbuckle, and he was from Derry, and he would come to 10 by 9 in Limavady and in Port Stewart, and if we had a 10 by 9 in Derry, he would come along. And he often came along and had a song that was part of his story. And also, he came up here a few times and did the same. And in fact, he made his, I think, Black Box debut in 2020, January. And I remember it because I was not here. That's how I know he did it. And it was actually the first night Paul Brady ever told the story as well. And Roy, he was so supportive of 10 by 9. He was a wonderful human being. And I did say to his son, I emailed his son, I said, we will toast your father at 10 by 9. And he was delighted. So please, a toast to the wonderful Roy Arbuckle.
And you can hear Roy himself on pod 250, Journey, and pod 136, Love from Limavady. Thank you, Roy. Okay, let's get on with the final story for this podcast. She has been a contributor to 10 by 9 for several years now, and she's great. I've always introduced her as Judith Cialinskaya.
Just over 4 years ago, my family life was changed completely. Our busy routine of getting kids ready for school, packed lunches, reminding each other who was collecting boys from after school, the texts to replenish the groceries and ensure that the day-to-day dynamics of the family life were kept ticking over, this was all abruptly halted. Our bubble was expanding due to Russia's expansive war on Ukraine. Airspace was closing around Ukraine, and it was thought that my Belarusian father-in-law needed to get out and come and stay with us in Belfast. No one was certain how things would go, and in my head, this temporary upheaval was the right thing to do. I can adapt. We can all make the effort for the new addition to our family home. I was actually very proud of my mature approach to this, as I kept saying in the back of my head, this is only temporary. In my 15 years of marriage, I can tell you without feeling bad in any way that when the Dadushka came to visit, I was the perfect host. I am a great host. But my hospitable nature would eventually come to an explosive end when the holiday time was over and we all got ourselves geared up to return to work and to school, but the Dadushka still remains spread out on my sofa. Read the room, man. It's time to go. House guests are great, but they are like fish. There's a point when there is no longer pleasant. The other half could never quite understand what my problem was with this. So as the war took hold in Ukraine, the Belarusian Dadushka's invasion took hold in my home. That year, I had reduced my working week to 4 days, which was lovely. I quickly returned to working 5 days that September again. He was settled in nicely. He doesn't speak English, and my children were never encouraged to speak Russian. So Google Translate became the norm. He spent most of his time playing chess on his mobile phone, until a few months in, the other half decided to make his dad take one-to-one English lessons. On this day of the week, he looked so much more alive, and he washed, and he got spruced up to go to the English lesson. I had to actually tell the husband to get the man to wash. Before long, he had discovered Duolingo on the phone, and that's all everyone ever heard about the house, were these constant monotone Americanized English phrases with Dadushka trying to recite them back. This would be happening as we would try to enjoy watching a film. That Duolingo pinging noise is a sound that I have come to detest. My house has one living area, and it was just not big enough for this new setup. At the weekends, we always enjoyed taking the boys out somewhere new, but now we had the non-communicative father-in-law in tow as well. Every few weeks or so, when I would get the other half on his own, I would bring up my ongoing discomfort at this new dynamic and would dare to suggest that this wasn't working and it was beginning to have an impact on everyone in the house. My concerns and suggestions to change would fall on deaf ears, and the solution was always be a big gesture of like booking a big new family holiday without the granddad. Their father-son dynamic was strange to watch, and even without the language, I could tell it was stunted. I wasn't sure whether it was just a Slavic thing or just an insight into the other half's upbringing. He was very different in his company. Well, over a year had passed and we just got on with our new setup. Dadushka made himself useful in cutting back my overgrown garden, and he put in his days well. I would often look at him and think this was a pretty miserable existence for him with poor communication and no friends. I proceeded to search for a Russian-speaking chess club. I found one not far away and took him along on a Sunday afternoon. Niet. He didn't wish to go back. Before long, it was Easter of the third year of this new family setup, and we had agreed to go for Sunday lunch and a few drinks with an elderly friend of my husband's. She's a visually impaired lady of a certain vintage, and boy, does she know how to enjoy life. I love spending time with her and listening to her absolute no-nonsense approach to just getting on and getting things done. On this Easter afternoon, the Dadushka was in tow also, and his now silenced Duolingo in hand. Talk about a downer. As the afternoon was drawing to a close and my husband went to the bar, she gently leaned over to me and whispered, "Is it me, or is that man bringing a heaviness to things? He's awfully rude." She nailed it. I jokingly changed the subject, but that stayed with me. As we approached the summer months, I had become very quiet and domesticated. I was running on autopilot. My husband announced that Dadushka was going to spend 6 weeks over with his daughter in Italy, and he said it in such a way that I should really be pleased. But I felt nothing. I didn't react. The Dadushka was packed and away, and in his absence, everyone reacted like they had just come up for air. I also realised that something new was coming my way. Too much damage had been done, too little communication, too many opportunities missed. Dadushka's exit saw the end of my marriage. I confessed that I could no longer live with a man and suggested that he move into a flat that I owned. The husband declared, "Well, if he goes, I go." And so another new beginning, just me and my boys. I was heartbroken and hurt, but I had no time to lie down to it. I have to recalibrate and figure out how stuff happens. Stuff I had taken my eye off. Stuff that was his job. He sorts that out. Now it's just me. It's scary, it's challenging. I'm learning to feel relaxed and comfortable in my own space again. I'm rediscovering new things that I forgot that I enjoyed. Like I prefer music to watching TV. I'm enjoying the crack with my boys more, and we spend quality time together instead of everyone scurrying off to their rooms. Some days I just feel awful that my marriage has ended, and then I remind myself that it's better to remove yourself from a scenario where you're not wanted and you're not happy. And if people don't choose you, well, that's their loss. I don't want to be something old. I was something borrowed. And I was, and probably will be for a while, something blue. And in my own time, I will become something new.
I don't know what to say, Judith. Thank you for trusting 10 by 9 with that incredibly personal story. And also, thank you for making it so amazing. I did get in touch with Judith just to double check she was happy with it featuring in the podcast, which she was, but she also paid tribute to the audience that night and said 10 by 9 had helped her creatively and spiritually, which is a great honour. Thanks, Judith. And that is it for this edition of the 10 by 9 podcast. You can keep up with all our upcoming events and themes by having a look at our website, 10by9.com. Plan your 2026 visit to the Black Box if you've not been yet. All the dates for the year are there, plus we've a few collaborations and some extra dates going up all the time. So come and join us. Always free. 10 by 9 is on the socials, of course. You can follow us on Twitter, though no one seems to be. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And you can get in touch via email at 10by9belfast@gmail.com. Thanks to everyone who helped make 10 by 9 happen. The wonderful Imagine Festival, a great addition to the Belfast year. Our wee team of volunteers, Leanne, Margaret, Chris and Cara. It would be impossible without you. The wonderful staff at the Black Box, home to 10 by 9 since 2011. Thanks to our fantastic 10 by 9 audience. You make everyone feel so welcome, as Judith made clear. And thanks to the thousands of people who have shared their stories at 10 by 9 over the years, but especially Ashley Nailward, Tim Hedgley and Judith McGillian. I'm Paul Dorn, and I'll be back with another podcast soon. But for now, bye-bye.